Today we are looking at elapsed time. I'm going to give you a quick review and then we are looking at 1 hour later and 30 minutes earlier.
This is a how-to video on elapsed time, but first I'm going to give you a quick refresher of time and what we have learned in term 1 about time. Remember, our big hand always points to the minutes and our small hand points to the hour. So right now it is 3 o'clock. Remember, each new number is 5 minutes apart. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. 1 whole hour is 60 minutes and half an hour is 30 minutes. When we do half an hour, the big hand always points to the 6. It's always on the 6 because it's half an hour. It is 30 minutes. When we do hour times, my big hand is always pointing to the 12. When we are talking about quarter past and quarter to, remember we can split our clock into 4 parts. There are 4 quarters. This is half my clock, but I can also split it into quarters. This is 1 quarter now. Each quarter is 15 minutes long. 5, 10, 15. That is 1 quarter here. When the big hand is pointing to the 3, it means that it is quarter past. That means that exactly 15 minutes has gone past. 15 minutes past the hour. If the big hand is pointing to the 9, that means it's quarter to. Anything over here is quarter to. We are nearly to the next hour. Big hand points to the 9 is quarter to. Big hand pointing to the 3 is quarter past. That means that there's been exactly 15 minutes past the hour. Quarter to means there's exactly 5, 10, 15 minutes to get to the next hour. At the moment it is 1:45, but in 15 minutes or a quarter, we'll be on our new hour, which is 2 o'clock. Today, for maths, we are going to be looking at elapsed time. The word elapsed means time that has gone by. We are going to be looking at what the time will be 1 hour later or 1 hour into the future. And we are also going to be looking at 30 minutes earlier. So what the time was 30 minutes ago. On screen you can see my clock and it is now showing 2:15. It will now show 2:15 or 2:15. It is showing 2:15 because my small hand is on the 2 and my big hand is on the 3. And I know that that is quarter past because it's 15 minutes past the hour. If I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour, that means to find out 1 hour later, I can move the big minute hand around the clock till I get to 60. Then I will know that it is 1 hour later. You can count with me. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. The time is now 1 hour later. I can see my long minute hand is still pointing to the 3, which is quarter past because that is where it was 1 hour earlier. But the hour hand has now moved. Instead of it being 2:15, it is now 3:15 or 3:15. Let's look at what the time will be 1 hour later. You can count with me again. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. The time is now 1 hour later. It is still quarter past because my big hand is on the 3, but the hour shorthand has now moved again, and it is no longer quarter past 3. It is now quarter past 4 or 4:15. Can you start to see the pattern? We had quarter past 2, 1 hour later was quarter past 3, and 1 hour later was quarter past 4. Think carefully and think about what the time will be in 1 more hour. Say that time now. That's right, it will be quarter past 5, and I can move my minute hand 1 hour loop to show you, and it is now quarter past 5 or 5:15. Let's have a look at a new one. If we start here, this time says 10 minutes past 5. The small hand is pointing to the 5 and the big hand is on the 2. That means that it is 5:10, 10 minutes past 5. If I wanted to know what the time will be in 1 hour, I move the long hand 60 minutes around the clock. Count with me. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. The time is 1 hour later. It is now 10 past 6. That means in 1 hour it will be. Think and say the answer now. That's right. In 1 hour it will be 10 past 7, and I can show you now. I'm going to do a 1 hour loop, and you can see the small hand is pointing to the 7, the big hand is pointing to the 2, which means that it is 5:10, 10 minutes past 7. Another hour has passed. A tip for elapsed time: wherever your long minute hand starts, as long as you do 1 full loop of the clock, that will be the same spot it stays, and 1 hour later. Today for your activity, you have 2 clock times that you are going to show what the time will be 1 hour later. The first time is quarter past 4. In your exercise book, you will need to draw an analog clock showing this time, quarter past 4, exactly as it looks on my clock now. And then you will draw another analog clock right next to it and draw the hands on the clock showing what the time will be 1 hour later. You can move the minute hand 60 minutes around the clock, counting in 5s, because 60 minutes is 1 hour. Your next time that you need to do and work out 1 hour later for is quarter to 3 or 2:45. And this is what it should look like on your analog clock. You need to, in your exercise book, draw an analog time showing this exact time, quarter to 3 or 2:45, and then another analog clock next to it, and draw the hands and work out what the time will be 1 hour later. You can move the long minute hand around the clock 60 minutes and counting in 5s to see what the time will be in 1 hour. We are also going to look at 30 minutes earlier. This means 30 minutes before. On the clock, I have 3 o'clock. My small hand is pointing to the 3 and my big hand is pointing to the 12. When we were looking at 1 hour later, we were always moving the minute hand forwards because we were going later, which is in the future. But because we want to know what the time is 30 minutes earlier, we are going to move the minutes hand backwards because earlier moves the time in the past. I can work the time out the same way, but instead of counting to 60 for 1 hour, I will count to 5s to 30 because 30 minutes is half an hour. I'm going to show you now. I'm moving my big hand backwards 30 minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I can see that the time is now 2:30 or 2:30. This is what the time is 30 minutes earlier from 3 o'clock. It is 2:30. Let's have a look at another time. Let's have a look at 1:15 or 1:15. If I want to know what the time was 30 minutes earlier, I am going to move my minute hand backwards around the clock for 30 minutes, counting by fives. Count with me. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I've now moved my hands 30 minutes earlier. The long minute hand is now pointing to the 9, which is 1:45, and my short hand is heading towards the 1. So it is 1:45 or 12:45. Today, you have 2 times that you are going to show 30 minutes earlier. The first time is 1 o'clock. In your exercise book, you are going to draw an analog clock showing 1 o'clock, exactly as it is on the screen right now. And then you are going to draw another analog clock right next to it and draw the hands that show what the time is 30 minutes earlier. Remember, you work out what the time is 30 minutes earlier by counting backwards around the clock for 30 minutes in fives. The second time that you are going to do is this time. 11:15 or 11:15. You need to draw an analog clock showing this exact time that's on my clock now, and then draw another analog clock next to it showing what the time will be 30 minutes earlier. You move the minute hand backwards 30 minutes to find out what the time was 30 minutes earlier. Following this how-to video will be a picture of my exercise book showing you exactly what your page should look like and how you should set out your work. The page will also have the clock times that you need to work at. You will answer those times in your exercise book. You have 2 times for 1 hour later, what the time will be 1 hour in the future. And then you have 2 time questions for 30 minutes earlier. This is what the time was in the past. I will also include the link to this clock that you can see on my screen in the captions, so you can work out the times at home if you don't have a clock. You just need to click on the link in the captions.